The Gates of Hell Open, a lesson on choices. Welcome back everyone to Mind Podcast. The opening of the gates of hell is not a joking matter. A venerable monk once said that those who indulge in hedonism will descend to hell to suffer, while those who practice good deeds will ascend to heaven. Although many are aware of this, not everyone makes the right choice. To lure people into hell, demons create enticing material temptations that people desire and pursue, but in reality all are deceptive, meant only to deceive people. There are two stories comparing heaven and hell, aimed at explaining human choices when faced with material and spiritual matters. Though these stories are light-hearted, they contain profound wisdom. The first story. After a director passed away, his soul was taken to meet Jesus at St. Peter's Basilica. There, everyone was reading the Bible and praising God. St. Peter allowed him to visit hell before making his decision. When he arrived in hell, he saw blue seas, white sands, bright sunshine, beautiful women singing and dancing, fine wine, and other pleasures. Upon returning, he chose hell. But when he returned, he faced mountains of knives, seas of fire, and boiling oil. He called out to St. Peter and asked about the beautiful things he had seen before. St. Peter replied that it was only a demo for testing. The second story. A successful woman who died in a car accident had her soul taken to heaven to meet St. Peter and was given a similar choice. In hell, she saw lush green golf courses, her friends and colleagues dining with lobster and caviar. She was very happy to be with them. She was then taken to heaven, singing hymns and passing through fluffy white clouds. After a day of experiencing, she chose hell. But upon returning, she saw hell as a barren land full of garbage, feces, and urine. Her friends were in tattered clothes, and vicious demons hugged her bewildered face and shouted, "Yesterday was just a greeting to sign a contract with you, but today you are one of us." Conclusion. If heaven and hell truly exist, isn't it true that every day we pursue worldly material temptations, we are moving closer to hell? Few choose a spiritual life to return to heaven. Recently, an article described a practitioner who, through the heavenly eye, saw the gates of hell open. This makes us seriously ponder this matter. The article stated that the practitioner often saw two large gates in another dimension open. One gate was the gate to hell, tall, dark, but decorated very luxuriously. Gaudily dressed female demons stood outside the gate to welcome guests. In front of the gate, there was a large feast with delicious food and enticing entertainment. Therefore, many people entered the gate of hell. The venerable monk shared that demons create enticing material things to deceive people, but all are deceptive. Many cannot distinguish, becoming confused and lost. He also saw many people dressed as monks and priests entering the gate of hell because they broke the precepts in their practice. Related lessons and stories. The heavenly realm is a place everyone strives to reach. According to information shared from a news source, the Hubble Space Telescope has captured images of heaven. Dr. Mosian, a believer in the existence of gods, said that the place they discovered is where God resides. Capturing the world of gods was not accidental, but some being influenced and directed the Hubble telescope to that position. Alongside the picture of heaven, another article revealed the process of Russian scientists discovering the portal to hell. Beginning in the 1970s, the former Soviet Union executed a large-scale underground drilling project. The drilling site was chosen in the Vysamo region, a sparsely populated area. They drilled the deepest hole ever, about 12.2 kilometers, making it the deepest military laboratory in the world. The exploration began on May 24, 1970, and stopped in 1994. By 1983, the drilling depth reached 7,000 meters, but they decided to stop. Only in 1993 did they drill an additional 262 meters, taking a full 10 years. The official reason given for stopping the drilling was insufficient funds. However, according to insider revelations, the real reason was that supernatural phenomena appeared in the hole. The technical drilling staff said that there was fundamentally no funding issue, but demons flew out from the bottom of the hole, making exploration impossible to continue. Dr. Ojakov explained these phenomena as follows. Previously, I did not believe in the theories of heaven and hell because I am a scientist, but now I cannot deny that hell truly exists. Needless to say, we were extremely shocked by these findings. We knew that what we saw with our own eyes and heard with our own ears was not an illusion. We are very sure that we found the gateway to hell. If heaven and hell truly exist, when faced with temptations leading people to hell, how can one discern? There is only one way, which is to keep one's heart kind, abandon excessive desires and lust, and listen to the call to goodness from the messengers of the gods. Certainly, you will avoid calamity and not fall into hell. The first story, the rooster's revenge for its owner. In the autumn of the year of the rooster during the Xunji period, 1644 to 1661, when the Qing dynasty ruled China, a monk passed through a market street in Namquan, Chaoping County. Standing in front of a shop, suddenly a rooster flew out from the shop and pecked at the monk's face. Seeing the monk's face pecked to the point of peeling flesh, people around helped to chase the rooster away. However, the rooster did not give up and continued to peck at the monk. The monk quickly left the shop, but the rooster still chased after him for more than 10 steps before stopping. On another day, as the monk passed by the same shop, he was once again attacked by the rooster, which pecked at his face until it bled, staining his clothes red with blood. The people on the street were even more astonished than before. 2 officials witnessed the scene and stopped the monk for questioning. His face was covered in wounds, and he appeared dazed and terrified, unable to speak. The officials quickly escorted the monk to the magistrate's office for interrogation. The monk detailed the incident as follows. About half a month ago, I stayed overnight at a bakery in a certain village. When I saw money hidden in a pouch, greed overcame me. Seeing no one around, I killed the shop owner and stole the money. After the owner died, his family brought the rooster to the market to sell, and someone from Namquan bought it. Although the murder was reported to the authorities, I believe the case, having occurred in a remote village, had been forgotten. I never expected to encounter this fierce rooster again. The culprit knew in his heart that the rooster had come to avenge its owner. The rooster had witnessed the murder and remembered the killer's face. One day, recognizing the murderer, it rushed out to seek revenge for its master. Animals, too, have a sense of justice. This story is recorded in the Kongyuan magazine by Wu Chenyan from the Qing dynasty. The second story, the giant turtles report. Lu Wenbi, courtesy named Bai Yu, served as the magistrate of Jingshan County in the first year of the Jisheng era, 1341. One day, a giant turtle suddenly crawled into the hall, staring at him as if it had something to report. Lu Wenbi ordered his soldiers to follow the giant turtle to uncover the matter. After leaving Jingshan County and traveling 6 to 7 miles, they reached an abandoned well, where the giant turtle jumped in. Knowing that the answer lay within the well, they asked the villagers for help. Indeed, they found a corpse. 2 days earlier, the victim had gone out for business with another merchant. The latter had killed him for the money and thrown him into the abandoned well to cover up his crime. The victim's family explained that when he was alive, he never ate turtle meat. Whenever he saw turtles for sale, he would buy them and release them. Thus, the giant turtle helped clear his injustice. This story is recorded in the Jingshan Lu, Moral Lessons. These stories reveal a message. All things possess a spirit, not just humans. The innate nature of animals is not tarnished by the selfish desires formed after birth, and their intelligence often surpasses human imagination. Animals too know how to repay kindness. What happens now may be the result of previous actions, and present deeds may sow seeds for the future. Everything humans do leaves a mark, much like boats on water. A murderer must pay for their crimes, if not in this life, then in another. Heaven and earth serve as a vast mirror, and the universe acts as a super repository of information. People often think their deeds go unnoticed, but heaven and earth see everything. The heavens will arrange for a person to face the consequences of their actions. This principle also applies to animals living in the same space and time as humans. These are 2 stories of vengeance among humans, but there are also stories of animals repaying kindness, which are equally moving. The third story, the bird's grateful accusation. In the Xunji era of the Qing dynasty, a family named Lu lived in Yixing, Zhejiang province, surrounding their home with bamboo, creating a dense forest. Birds loved this place, residing there and filling the forest with their chirping. Mr. Lu, the forest's owner, cherished the birds and forbade hunters from shooting them. In rain, snow, or cold weather, he would bring grain to feed the birds in the bamboo forest. In the third year of Shunji, Mr. Lu's enemy falsely accused him of being a rebel, leading to his arrest and strict interrogation at the magistrate's office. At that time, thousands of prisoners were chained and their pleas piled up like mountains. Suddenly, 100 birds flew to the court, their noise filling the sky. As Mr. Lu was being interrogated, a bird flew to the desk, grabbed the false accusation, and swiftly flew away. The birds then dispersed. This unusual event surprised the interrogators, who sensed something was amiss. They summoned the accuser. After intense questioning, the truth emerged. Mr. Lu had been framed. Mr. Lu then built a pavilion in the district to commemorate the bird's loyalty and intelligence. This loyal bird pavilion was located in Bilian City during the Qing dynasty. The fourth story, the monkey that saved a village. In 2000, deep in the mountains of Chongqing, a black monkey and the mountain villagers created a miraculous story of gratitude. In late July 2000, Wang Jicheng, a man living at the foot of Beiji Mountain, was gathering herds in the forest. Suddenly, a black figure fell from a tree. Startled, Wang was about to flee, but the small black figure swiftly grabbed his leg. Looking down, he saw a 2-year-old black monkey looking at him pitifully, whimpering, with its left hand bleeding. The monkey was seeking help. Without hesitation, Wang Jicheng carried the small black monkey home. He washed the wound and applied herbal medicine. A week later, the monkey's wound healed, and Wang Jicheng released it back into the forest. Unexpectedly, the monkey didn't leave, staying around the Wang household, even helping with chores and scaring off wild boars, porcupines, or golden monkeys that damaged crops. Time passed, and one day the black monkey quietly left. At 3 a.m. in late September, Wang Jicheng and all the villagers were asleep. Suddenly, Wang was awakened by a loud cry. Rushing out, he saw the black monkey had returned, frantically pointing to the mountain behind the house. Wang Jicheng looked back and was shocked to see a massive landslide with huge boulders rolling towards the village. The black monkey spread its arms wide, urgently pulling Wang Jicheng outside. He quickly gathered his family and ran, alerting 20 other villagers of the impending disaster. In the end, the villagers were saved. They searched for their savior and found the monkey on a tree, joyfully calling out, as if blessing those who had escaped death. This is a fascinating story of the karma and retribution spanning 3 lifetimes. After Empress Qinhui passed away, the ghost of the afterlife came to take her to see King Yama. King Yama, in anger, imprisoned her and condemned her to hell, where she was transformed into a being with a neck as thin as a needle and a belly as large as a basket, unable to eat or drink, covered in sores with countless maggots clinging to her, suffering endlessly. After a period, Empress Qinhui was reincarnated as a snake, continuing to endure excruciating torment. The first retribution. Long ago, in a monastery divided into east and west quarters, there was an earthworm in front of the east room that would hear the monks chanting sutras day and night. With its innate intelligence, it would cry out at exactly the 5th watch, prompting the abbot to wake the disciples for chanting and meditation. The abbot of the west room, noticing this, scolded his disciples for not being as diligent as their eastern counterparts, who would rise at the 5th watch daily to chant and meditate. One day, a disciple from the west asked those in the east how they managed to wake up so early every day. They replied that since the appearance of the earthworm in front of their Dharma hall, it cried out at exactly the 5th watch, and their abbot would wake them upon hearing its call. Jealousy grew in the heart of a disciple from the west, and one day, while the east abbot and his disciples were away, he boiled a pot of water and poured it into the worm's hole, killing it. The next day, the east disciples did not hear the worm's cry and found it dead, reporting this to their abbot, who chanted to liberate its soul. The worm was reincarnated as a kind woodcutter who made a living by chopping wood in the forest. The west disciple, having committed the sin of killing, was reincarnated as a monkey, but still believed in Buddhism. One day, the woodcutter found a dilapidated temple in the forest, and fearing the Buddha statues would be damaged by rain and wind, bought materials to repair the roof. Another time he saw 7 scholars struggling to cross a stream and hurriedly placed stones to create a path for them. The mountain god and earth deity, witnessing his deeds, reported to the heavens, saying that a kind woodcutter on earth had repaired the 3 treasures hall and built a bridge, earning great merit. The second retribution. The woodcutter would daily collect flowers in the forest to offer to the Buddha. Nearby, a monkey would also bring flowers to the Buddha, but each time it would replace the woodcutter's flowers with its own. Curious, the woodcutter hid one day and saw the monkey replacing his flowers. He angrily chased the monkey, which hid in a crevice, and the woodcutter sealed it with a large rock, causing the monkey to die of starvation. The woodcutter lived a long life and was reincarnated during the Liang dynasty as Emperor Shaoyan, known as Emperor Wu of Liang. The monkey was reincarnated in northern Wei as Ho Jing, who later became a general. Retribution for slandering Buddhism. Emperor Wu of Liang was kind-hearted and revered Buddhism, considering the monk Qigong as his teacher. His wife, Empress Su Hui, also revered the monk Yun Gong as her teacher. One day, monk Yun Gong held a Dharma lecture, and Empress Su Hui invited Emperor Wu to listen. Emperor Wu invited monk Qigong to join. During the lecture, Yun Gong drank wine and ate meat, prompting Qigong to ask why, as a monk and teacher of the Empress, he did not maintain a pure and solemn demeanor while lecturing. Yun Gong replied, "I eat meat and drink wine as though I have not consumed them." Qigong retorted, "I see your actions as though they have not been done." Not long after, Yun Gong fell ill and died, reincarnated as a cow. Knowing this, Qigong told Emperor Wu, who did not believe him. One day, while outside the city, they saw farmers working with a mottled cow. Qigong pointed out that this was Yun Gong. Skeptical, Emperor Wu called out 3 times and the cow knelt and wept. Qigong explained that Yun Gong, who had lectured without purity, now faced the retribution of being reborn as a cow. Upon hearing this, the cow ran into an iron pillar and died instantly. However, he still could not give up his luxurious lifestyle and often invited monk Qigong to attend banquets with singing and dancing, which greatly displeased Qigong. During a lively performance by the palace maidens, Emperor Wu of Liang asked monk Qigong, "How is the performance by the palace maidens?" Monk Qigong replied, "I do not know." Emperor Wu of Liang said, "The maidens are performing right in front of you. How can you not know?" Monk Qigong replied, "If your majesty does not believe me, bring 3 prisoners sentenced to death from the prison here, and I will explain." Emperor Wu of Liang had 3 condemned prisoners brought to kneel before monk Qigong. Qigong said, "These 3 men are condemned to death. Now I will place a bowl of water on each of their heads. If they can watch the performance without spilling a drop, I will ask the emperor to pardon them and allow them to return to their homes. If they spill even a single drop, the original sentence will be carried out." The 3 prisoners did as they were told, kneeling before the hall watching the performance. At the height of the performance, monk Qigong said to Emperor Wu, "Your Majesty, ask the prisoners how they found the performance." Emperor Wu of Liang asked, "Prisoners, how did you find the performance? Was it good?" The prisoners replied in unison, "We do not know." Emperor Wu of Liang said, "The maidens are performing right in front of you. How can you not know?" The prisoners answered, "We were only concerned with our lives and had no mind to watch the performance." Monk Qigong smiled and said, "It is the same for practitioners." Emperor Wu of Liang was enlightened upon hearing this and pardoned the prisoners, who gratefully returned home. Another day, Emperor Wu of Liang asked monk Qigong, "I have given alms, built temples, and offered to the Buddhas and monks. Does this earn me great merit?" Monk Qigong replied, "There is no merit at all." Emperor Wu of Liang asked, "You said that in my previous life as a woodcutter, I repaired the temple roof, sheltered the 3 treasures, and built the 7 stars bridge, earning boundless merit. Now, as an emperor, I have built countless temples and monasteries and made offerings to monks. Why is there no merit?" Monk Qigong replied, "In your previous life, as a woodcutter, you acted out of a pure heart, voluntarily repairing the temple and building the bridge with your own strength, which brought you great merit. Now, as an emperor, you build temples and monasteries by commanding the people, causing them hardship. Therefore, there is no merit in these actions." Emperor Wu of Lian found this explanation reasonable and was enlightened. Empress Su Hui orders the killing of monk Shigong. One day, Empress Su Hui angrily ordered monk Shigong to be killed. She struck the drum and had forbidden foods like ginger, garlic, and meat brought to the imperial garden. Hearing the drum, Emperor Wu of Liang rushed to intervene. He scolded Empress Su Hui, predicting she would face retribution. Indeed, not long after, Empress Su Hui fell ill and died due to her blasphemy against the monks. After her death, her soul was taken by the ghost of the afterlife to see King Yama. King Yama, in anger, imprisoned her in hell, transforming her into a being with a neck as thin as a needle and a belly as large as a basket, unable to eat or drink, covered in sores with countless maggots clinging to her, suffering endlessly. After a period, she was reincarnated as a snake, continuing to endure excruciating torment. The story continues. After the empress's death, Emperor Wu of Lian did not enter the palace for a long time. One day, he visited the inner palace and heard a noise from the tower. Looking up, he saw a snake on the Phoenix Tower crying out for help. Startled, he asked, "Who are you?" The snake replied, "I am Empress Su Hui. Due to my slander against Buddhism and harm to monk Shigong, I have now faced retribution, reincarnated as a snake. Please, out of our past relationship, invite the compassionate monk Qigong to recite sutras for my salvation." Emperor Wu of Lian, moved by past feelings, arranged a grand ceremony and invited monk Qigong to preach. The third retribution. One day, Emperor Wu of Lian asked monk Qigong, "When will I achieve enlightenment?" Monk Qigong did not respond but pointed to his throat. Emperor Wu of Lian did not understand and asked again. Monk Qigong said, "Your Majesty, living in luxury, cannot attain enlightenment. You must retreat to the mountains to achieve Buddhahood." Emperor Wu of Lian, upon hearing this, packed his belongings and went to Mount Qing to practice. Knowing Emperor Wu was about to face the retribution for his past deeds, monk Qigong also took his leave. Emperor Wu's siege. After monk Qigong left, General Hao Jing of Northern Wei besieged Mount Qing. Emperor Wu was trapped, with food supplies running low. In his desperation, he lost faith in Buddhism. Just then, monk Qigong appeared in the sky, urging, "This is the karma from your past lives. Do not lose faith in your practice." Witnessing the karma of monk Yunggong, Emperor Wu of Lian happily accepted starving to death at Qingtai. The mortal world is a place for people to repay debts and show gratitude. Many daily events that we consider coincidences are actually arrangements by a higher power. Believers create good karma and perform virtuous deeds, while non-believers accumulate karma day and night. Life is full of endless cycles of retribution. Only through forgiveness and tolerance can one find liberation from all sins. The fisherman who was caught by a fish. A man was eating a familiar, delicious piece of fish when suddenly he began to choke, his eyes rolling back, his mouth wide open, writhing in pain before dying. Onlookers found a fishing hook lodged in his throat, causing chills. He was a professional fisherman who had killed countless fish for fun, leading to his tragic end. Here are 3 cautionary tales for those who indulge in killing animals for sport. Finding pleasure in fishing. Lin Jiapeng was a government official and an avid fisherman, a member of a fishing club. On weekends, he would sail out to sea, fishing while drinking wine and enjoying delicacies, experiencing great pleasure. Members relished fresh fish, fine wine, and earthly joys. Years ago, the club was vibrant, but recently membership dwindled from 30 to 7 to 8 members. The atmosphere grew heavy, and enthusiasm for fishing waned. Despite Lin Jiapeng's skepticism about karma, his solitary efforts couldn't revive the club's spirit due to 2 frightening incidents. Swallowing a fishing hook. The first incident involved veteran member Aban. On a Sunday, Aban and his wife visited his father-in-law's lavish birthday feast with an abundance of meats and seafood. Aban, a lover of fish and innards, quickly indulged. In his haste, he swallowed too much, choking on something hard. He couldn't breathe or cry for help. His brother, noticing his distress, rushed to assist, but Aban's eyes rolled back and he collapsed. They hurried him to the hospital, but he died en route. The doctors performed an autopsy and found a fishing hook lodged in his throat. The hook, embedded in the fish's innards, protruded into his throat. Attempts to remove it only worsened the situation. This tragic scene, coupled with Aben's fishing prowess, left witnesses convinced of the karma of his actions. His death, with the hook in his throat, mirrored the agony of the fish he caught, a fishing enthusiast's grim fate. The second story is even more peculiar. Club member Mr. Yang, a fishing champion, also loved riding his electric bike with his wife. One night, after visiting a friend, he drove home on a familiar road. Suddenly, he saw a large river which had never been there before. To avoid falling into it, he swerved and crashed into a roadside pole. When he woke up in the hospital, his body healed quickly except for severe mouth injuries. His lips and mouth were terribly wounded, unable to eat. Despite multiple surgeries, his lips remained torn, resembling a fish's mouth. Doctors tried everything, but his condition persisted. One day, his wife remarked, "Your mouth looks just like the fish you catch." This comment struck a chord with Mr. Yang, recalling the fish he had injured with hooks. Deeply moved, he and his wife visited a temple to sincerely repent, vowing never to fish again. Miraculously, his mouth began to heal, and he was discharged a week later. Sharing his story with fellow members, he persuaded many to quit fishing. Eventually, Lin Jiapeng also gave up fishing, and the club disbanded. Fishing is an extremely cruel activity. Imagine how painful it would be to have a sharp hook pierce through your lips and gums. Yet many people find pleasure in fishing, tirelessly catching fish without any regard for their suffering. The argument that fishing cultivates patience is absurd. Such a statement reveals a complete lack of compassion. Besides fishing, many people also take pleasure in hunting birds, inadvertently creating negative karma for themselves. Retribution for randomly hunting birds. In the household of Ji Xiaolan, there was a servant named Wang Fa. He was skilled in crafting items and could make a very accurate air gun. With this gun, he could shoot birds with unerring accuracy, killing dozens of small birds daily. Wang Fa had an only son named Ji Linzhou. At the age of 12, Ji Linzhou suddenly developed sores all over his body that resembled burns, with metal rings inside each sore. It was baffling how the metal got inside his body. Wang Fa sought medical help everywhere, trying every possible treatment, but nothing worked, and his son eventually died in agony. The cruelty of killing fish for fun. Fish and meat are important food sources for humanity, leading to the existence of fishermen, hunters, and butchers. This may be seen as part of their destiny. When we do not rely on fishing for a living, but kill for fun, it goes against the natural order and creates bad karma. By understanding karma, we realize that every action leads to a result. Good actions bring good results, and bad actions bring bad results. So if it's just for fun, please stop fishing and hunting birds, not for the sake of the animals, but for your own sake. Let fishermen, hunters, and butchers do their ordained work while we do ours. We can find other legitimate hobbies that do not harm living beings. Then, our lives will naturally become more peaceful. Devout Buddhists still end up in hell. The shocking reason. Aolan was a devout and pious girl. Unable to bear the grief of her father's death, she fell ill and bedridden, eventually passing away. 7 days later, she revived and recounted her experience of meeting bodhisattvas, learning her father's fate, and traveling through the underworld. She saw acquaintances who believed in Buddha but were suffering in hell, ultimately learning the reasons behind their fates. Today, let's uncover the true causes together with Meili. Dying and reviving after 7 days, witnessing karma and retribution during the Qing dynasty. In Wujian, Jiangsu province, there lived a devout Buddhist named Kuai Lanzhou. He was always happy to help others and was kind-hearted, so people in need often sought his assistance. Every morning, he would first read the Diamond Sutra and meditate in his family's Buddha hall every evening. His daughter, Olan, influenced by her father, also became a devout Buddhist. In middle age, Kuai developed severe, unhealing sores on his back and eventually died. His death caused his daughter immense grief. Hearing her father's lamentations, she lost faith in Buddhism. Her father had said, "I revered the gods and Buddha my whole life and found joy in helping others, yet my fate was suffering without divine protection." These words deeply wounded Olan, leading her to lose faith even more. Her family remarked, "Your father was so devout, yet the gods did not protect him. Are the gods and Buddha truly powerful?" This only deepened her sorrow, causing her to fall ill. She could barely drink water, let alone eat. wasting away to a mere skeleton. Her servants feared she wouldn't live much longer. One day, Ulan requested a hot water bath, asking for a wooden basin. She instructed her servants to avoid using dirty objects, saying, "After washing, I will ascend to the lotus world to meet the Bodhisattva." After washing, she sat cross-legged on a cushion, closed her eyes, and her breathing weakened. Shortly after, she passed away. Her family, following her instructions, placed her body in a box, not a coffin, and left it in a room. 7 days later, her body remained soft and warm, with a faint pink hue on her face. On the 7th night, her family heard noises from the box and heavenly music. They opened the box to find Ulan alive. She clasped her hands together, saying, "Wonderful, wonderful. Buddha is in everyone's heart. I tell you, hell is real. Good and evil reap their rewards like shadows following the body." Experiencing the underworld and seeing the truth, her family eagerly asked about her experiences. Ulan recounted how her soul left her body, traveling through a hazy golden light. She began reciting Buddhist scriptures, and the surroundings brightened, revealing flags and canopies descending from the clouds. In the distance, she saw radiant clouds and a gentle bodhisattva looking at her. She immediately knelt and pleaded for help to escape suffering. The bodhisattva said, "You should not be here. Return quickly," and sprinkled holy water from a willow branch, calming and enlightening her. She asked about her father's whereabouts. The bodhisattva revealed that her father was enjoying blessings in the second heavenly realm and would ascend higher. She was told to cultivate diligently to reunite with him. Journeying through hell, Bodhisattva said, "Do not be emotional. Since you are here, let the heavenly emissary take you on a tour of hell so people can understand the consequences of evil deeds." The heavenly emissary descended in a halo of light and took her to the underworld, where she met King Yama. Surrounding him were fierce demons. The emissary conveyed the Bodhisattva's message, and King Yama ordered the demons to guide her through the different levels of hell. In one level of hell, she saw two people she knew. One was an old woman named Yi from the north gate of Wujiang, who was known for her diligent daily chanting and devotion to Buddha, often referred to as a virtuous person by the townspeople. Despite her reputation, she was condemned to the freezing hell, shivering and unable to stand. Seeing this, she asked, "She believed in Buddha. Why must she suffer?" The demon replied, "This woman had a strong greed. She used Buddhism as a pretext to solicit donations everywhere, but used the money for personal gain, charging high interest and exploiting the poor. Hence, she must endure this suffering." Next, she was taken to another place where she saw her sister-in-law, who had remained a widow in the past. Her legs were nailed to a door, causing immense pain. She asked, "When did you come here? What sin did you commit to suffer like this?" The demon replied, "Your sister-in-law harbored intense jealousy, forbidding her husband from taking concubines, which caused the family line to end. She also treated the servants harshly, beating and cursing them severely. She said, 'I know she didn't eat beef and always worshipped at temples. Wasn't that enough to atone for her sins?' The demon said, 'Those were minor good deeds on the surface, insufficient to offset her sins.' Afterwards, she was taken to the Naihei Bridge. The bridge was several stories high and only a few inches wide, with poisonous snakes in the river below, ready to bite anyone who fell. She saw her cousin there, which puzzled her as she had visited him the day before when he was ill. At this point, her family explained, "Yesterday, he suddenly died from an acute illness. Indeed, good and evil have their rewards. That day, he used the excuse of visiting you to steal all your money and jewels." Ulan continued, "I also saw Aunt John from the South Gate, who died in childbirth with her newborn submerged in a pool of blood. I pleaded with the heavenly messenger to save her, and he said that on a snowy night, she had saved a beggar woman and her child from freezing to death. The heavenly messenger then released a lotus flower, allowing Aunt Jang and her child to climb onto it and reach the other shore." Witness accounts and rebirth. A servant who was listening immediately reported, "I am the wet nurse for Aunt Jong from the South Gate. Last night, my mistress died in childbirth, but today she miraculously revived, saying that the young lady had saved her in the underworld. Now both mother and child are safe and sound, and she sent me to thank you." Everyone was amazed and moved by what Ulan recounted about her visit to hell. They all vowed to change their ways, to do good and accumulate virtue. After recovering, Ulan lived for another 36 years, remaining devoted to Buddha. The moral of the story. Dear friends, hearing this story about visiting the underworld, we realize that outward appearances can deceive the mortal eye but not the divine. Merely professing belief in the gods and Buddha is not enough. One must have true faith and selflessly do good for others. Only through sincere cultivation and self-improvement can one reach a better place after death. As the saying goes, the robe does not make the monk. We must look at actions in the heart to truly understand. What are your thoughts on this story? Please leave a comment and share with everyone. Hello everyone. Welcome to Mind Podcast Buddhism. Today we will talk about the topic, the meaning of vegetarianism in Buddhism. We will explore the reasons behind this practice, its significance from both scientific and spiritual perspectives, and how it embodies compassion and wisdom in daily life. Whether you're a seasoned vegetarian or just curious about the practice, join us as we delve into the profound connection between our dietary choices and the path to enlightenment. The meaning of vegetarianism in Buddhism. Vegetarianism is not a unique aspect of Buddhism, since many other religions also advocate for a vegetarian diet, such as Jainism in India. Many people, even those who do not follow Buddhism or any religion at all, practice strict vegetarianism, including many Westerners. Conversely, some Buddhists do consume meat and fish. So what is the true significance of vegetarianism in the Buddhist spirit? This essay will explore the significance of vegetarianism from three perspectives: scientific understanding, Buddhist scriptures, and different Buddhist schools of thought, and finally, a more open discussion on the topic. 1. Scientific perspective on vegetarianism. Are humans naturally vegetarian or carnivorous? Science clearly indicates that humans originally consumed fruits, roots, leaves, tubers, and plant stems. Human teeth are not designed for meat eating. They lack the sharp and long canines. Relative to body size, the human intestine is too long, averaging 18 meters. This is characteristic of herbivorous animals, as a long intestine helps efficiently absorb the low nutritional content of plants. Human ancestors lived in trees, then adapted to life on the ground, where they began eating insects found under rocks, in grass, or in tree holes. This diet is referred to as omnivorous, meaning eating anything available. Adaptation to ground life required vigilance against predators, leading ancestors to stand on two legs for a better view and to run faster. This was one of many reasons for human evolution. As human ancestors learned to stand on two legs, the position of the head relative to the spine changed, allowing the skull to grow larger towards the back, thus giving humans a bigger brain. With a larger brain and free hands, humans invented tools like carved stones and bows for hunting larger and smarter animals than insects or small creatures hiding under rocks or in tree holes. Consequently, the omnivorous diet evolved to include more meat. Over time, humans created increasingly sophisticated tools, enabling them to kill large and dangerous animals. These tools have evolved into modern-day weapons such as guns and nuclear bombs. Unfortunately, these dangerous tools are no longer used for hunting, as animals have become too naive compared to humans. These weapons are now used to kill each other to compete for and protect resources, even though the powerful nations that produce these weapons already have an abundance of food. Thanks to their brains, humans also invented language. Language has become increasingly complex, allowing humans to think about complex and abstract issues, using images and symbols to express thoughts, leading to the creation of literature, poetry, and even philosophy. Humans can find and eat almost anything, creating elaborate dishes from the flesh of various creatures. However, scientific research and medical statistics, another product of human ingenuity, consistently show that vegetarians tend to be healthier, less prone to diseases, particularly heart disease and cancer, and live longer than meat eaters. With this scientific understanding, many Westerners have adopted vegetarianism to reduce bodily pollution, limit environmental destruction, and avoid toxins and excessive nutrients from animal meat and fat. Numerous articles on vegetarianism in this vein are supplemented with statistical evidence, medical explanations, biochemical and physiological analyses. 2. Vegetarianism, according to Buddhist scriptures and schools of thought. Why do most Buddhists practice vegetarianism? Did the Buddha explicitly instruct us to be vegetarians? In which scriptures are such teachings recorded? Are those scriptures authentic? A final question often raised in various writings is whether the Buddha himself was a vegetarian. Any definitive stance on these questions can lead to endless debates. Therefore, the following discussion does not aim to directly answer these questions, but to highlight and explore several aspects of the issue. Readers can find their own suitable answers, whether leaning one way or another. Historically, Jainism, which advocates vegetarianism, predates or coincides with the time of the Buddha in the 6th century BCE. Additionally, when Mahayana Buddhism was re-established and flourished in the 2nd century CE, it strongly advocated vegetarianism. This practice had already been widespread among the general populace since the 3rd century BCE, as evidenced by Emperor Ashoka, 304 to 232 BCE, who was a vegetarian, banned animal slaughter and encouraged his subjects to adopt a vegetarian diet. Buddhist scriptures are abundant, yet they do not extensively detail or directly promote vegetarianism, possibly because it was an obvious practice for those following the Buddha's teachings. Scriptures frequently emphasize the prohibition of killing. However, one should not rely solely and simplistically on scriptures to determine a suitable way of life for oneself and the environment. It is neither practical nor advisable to rigidly adhere to scriptures, following them verbatim, and acting freely otherwise. We have seen the detrimental effects of some traditions where followers strictly bind themselves to inflexible doctrines. There are approximately 58,000 volumes of scriptures recording the Buddhist teachings, a significant number, even considering the Buddha's 45 years of teaching. This does not include the scriptures lost over time, such as the millions of volumes destroyed by Muslims, exemplified by the Buddhist library at the Deer Park, Sarnath, of which only a brick foundation remains today. There have been 3 major councils for compiling Buddhist scriptures. The first council took place in Rajagrha 1 year after the Buddha's passing. The second was held in Vaisali 110 years after his passing. During the second council, significant disagreements emerged within the Sangha, leading to 2 different schools of thought. The third council was even more complex. According to Pali scriptures, Theravada, it occurred in Pataliputra 137 years after the Buddha's passing. Mahayana scriptures, however, state the third council took place later, around 160 years after the Buddha's passing, and not in Vaisali, but in Jalandhara, modern-day Kashmir. By the third council, 18 schools and 4 languages were used to record the Buddhist teachings. Due to the complexity and richness of the scriptures and doctrines, it is possible that the Tripitaka, Vinaya, Sutra, and Abhidharma were transcribed during this time, although no concrete evidence remains. Western scholars suggest that written Pali scriptures began appearing from the 1st century BCE to the mid-1st century CE, while Mahayana scriptures were transcribed from the mid-1st century BCE to the 6th century CE for some later texts. This indicates that neither Theravada nor Mahayana scriptures can claim greater antiquity or authenticity based solely on written records. Before that, both monks and laypeople memorized the teachings and passed them down orally for hundreds of years before they were transcribed onto palm leaves. Oral transmission was considered more lively, sacred, and respectful than dry written words. Thus, memorizing scriptures was a form of practice, with monks learning them by heart and lay people listening and remembering directly. The oral tradition and the late appearance of written scriptures remind us to be cautious and not to rigidly adhere to text. Theravada Buddhism asserts no specific precept prohibits meat eating. In the Majjhima Nikaya, middle-length discourses, part of the Tripitaka, there is a story about Devadatta, the Buddha's cousin and disciple, who advocated for strict asceticism. Devadatta requested the Buddha to impose a precept forbidding monks from eating meat. The Buddha did not agree, stating, "Meat can be considered pure in 3 cases, if the eater did not see, hear, or suspect that the animal was killed specifically for them." Devadatta's biography is quite complex, often depicted as extreme and having attempted to harm the Buddha multiple times. So, how should we understand these arguments? The Buddha taught us to uphold precepts, the first of which is to abstain from killing. During his lifetime, the Buddha organized the Sangha's activities to align with the Dharma and the environment, such as the practice of vasa, rain retreat. In India, the monsoon season is when nature and all living beings revive and flourish. Vasa was to avoid unintentionally harming nature and trampling small creatures. The Buddha taught us to observe vasa. Would he then allow eating meat when his disciples did not see, hear, or suspect that the animal was killed specifically for them? The Buddha often reiterated in scriptures, "Be careful, be vigilant, and guard your mind. The mind always tries to deceive you." Continuing to eat meat without seeing, hearing, or suspecting its origin is a way of using one's mind to deceive oneself. The principle of interdependence in the Dharma teaches that every action, thought, and phenomenon are interconnected. Can the condition of not knowing, not hearing, not suspecting override the law of interdependence? If the law of cause and effect were that lax, what value would it hold? For instance, if we eat pork, even without seeing, hearing, or suspecting that the animal was killed for us, the pork fat can still clog our arteries. If the pig had parasites, we could still contract them. Essentially, we would directly bear the consequences of eating meat. The urge to eat meat translates into action, creating negative karma. Karma means action, and the action of eating meat necessarily involves an animal enduring pain and death, generating negative karma for us, though we may be unaware of it. However, the dietary practices of early Buddhism, if strictly followed according to the original meaning and rituals recorded in Theravada scriptures, are beneficial. Eating only once before noon to limit greed and overeating, alms rounds to avoid attachment and worry about food, consuming cold, mixed offerings from lay people to avoid enjoyment and craving. The story of one of the 16 arhats, Pindola Bharadvaja, illustrates this. He calmly ate the finger of a leper that accidentally fell into his alms bowl. Yet, aside from rural areas in Theravada countries, alms rounds are not suited to modern urban society. Most temples today have kitchens serving the Sangha, and monks are aware of this, but they choose not to see, hear, or know. Mahayana Buddhists are stricter vegetarians, but often eat too much, having 2 or 3 elaborate meals a day, mimicking meat dishes almost perfectly. This may be a way of deceiving oneself, nurturing cravings and attachments. Therefore, both monastic and lay practitioners must be vigilant in their actions. The significance of eating vegetarian lies more in the intent behind it than the food itself. If we cannot resist eating meat or fish, we should remember that an animal endured pain and death for our pleasure and sustenance. While chewing an animal's flesh, we should also be mindful of our own impermanence. Readers may have found answers to the questions raised earlier in this section. However, the question, "Did the Buddha eat meat?" is delicate and worth careful thought. Asking this implies comparing our actions with the Buddha's, comparing our dualistic, formulaic understanding with the Buddha's supernatural, non-dualistic wisdom, comparing our ignorance with the Buddha's awakened intellect, comparing our entangled mind with the Buddha's enlightened mind. This question is flawed and thus cannot have a correct answer. The Buddha abandoned his palace and luxuries to live an ascetic life, with no intention of seeking delicious food. Ascetics often ate minimal food, sometimes only a sesame seed a day. Although the Buddha later recognized the error in such extreme practice, he did not turn to seeking luxurious foods. The Buddha survived to teach us the Dharma with the simplest meal offered by a servant girl from a nearby village. Thus, we should not concern ourselves with what the Buddha ate, but instead question whether we can understand his teachings. The Mahaparinibbana Sutta describes the Buddha's last meal, which included an uncertain dish, pork or a mushroom. Many Western scholars have studied the ancient language, concluding it was a type of mushroom called pig's delight. This mushroom was named so because pigs' keen sense of smell helped find them, similar to how Europeans use pigs and dogs to hunt the prized truffle, often called black diamonds for their high cost. Some researchers focused on identifying mushrooms in the region where the Buddha passed away. Others studied ancient dialects of North India, claiming it was a type of dried, ground pork. Numerous articles discuss this topic today. This exemplifies the pitfalls of rigid adherence to scriptures passed down orally for centuries and the crude entanglements of our minds. Fixating on an unclear word leads to unnecessary doubt, possibly dangerous. To illustrate this perspective further, consider the following example, although it may not fully align with the Dharma, but is concrete and easy to understand. With our conventional dualistic understanding, we label this as a piece of meat and that as a mushroom. However, even a novice practitioner can perceive both as mere aggregations of atomic particles brought together by various conditions. From an atomic perspective, meat and mushrooms are indistinguishable, as atoms consist of nuclei and orbiting electrons within empty space. Ultimately, as practitioners, we should choose foods that do not cause suffering to other beings and do not create negative karma for ourselves. In conclusion, practice should not get bogged down by trivial concerns, but aim higher, seeking the profound nature of all phenomena, cultivating compassion, and developing wisdom to achieve enlightenment and liberation. We should not obsess over food choices, but focus on understanding and embodying the Buddhist teachings. 3. Discussing the meaning of vegetarianism. This section begins with a few questions. Have you ever practiced vegetarianism? If so, since when? And do you do it sporadically on a fixed schedule, or are you a strict vegetarian? For those who have never practiced vegetarianism, this discussion and the points raised here might not be of much concern. Conversely, for those who do practice vegetarianism, the following questions are significant. In what circumstances do you practice vegetarianism? What motivates you to do so? Many people practice vegetarianism for various reasons and with different goals. However, we can broadly categorize them into 3 cases. Case 1. Vegetarianism for health. Some practice vegetarianism to preserve their health and avoid serious illnesses. This form of vegetarianism was discussed in the first part of this article, which considers vegetarianism from a scientific perspective. Medical science and research have extensively studied vegetarianism. Many Buddhist doctors, pharmacists, nutritionists, and physiologists have presented and developed this topic. These writings demonstrate the health benefits of vegetarianism. Promoting vegetarianism for health reasons is beneficial, but is not inherently Buddhist. It is simply a way to cling to the impermanent physical body through a vegetarian diet, indirectly reinforcing the illusion of the self. Buddhists eat vegetarian simply without expecting anything in return. Health benefits are secondary or incidental, since our health depends on numerous karmic and circumstantial factors. Even strict vegetarians can develop cancer or heart disease because their vegetarianism cannot counteract other strong karmas. Some people reluctantly practice vegetarianism due to tradition, family pressure, or circumstances such as illness. This article will not delve further into these cases. Case 2. Vegetarianism, motivated by deeper reasons. Some are driven by profound reasons to practice vegetarianism. For example, a French judo champion who had won numerous European and world championships decided to stop eating bloody steaks after a motorcycle accident left his calf torn open, revealing red, bloody flesh that reminded him of a steak. Another example is the 19th century French poet Alphonse de Lamartine, who as a child asked his mother to let him practice vegetarianism after witnessing the blood and stench of a slaughterhouse. These stories have no explicit Buddhist elements, but something within these individuals' consciousness prompted them to reject meat. This feeling may not be full-fledged compassion, but a subtle manifestation of kindness, which, although vague, is an initial emotional response to the suffering of sentient beings or fellow humans. Many people have similar experiences, which vary depending on the circumstances. If we pay attention, we can easily observe such suffering in our daily lives, such as witnessing the slaughter of animals or roadkill. While we might be momentarily moved by these scenes, we often forget them quickly. This forgetfulness happens because our inherent seeds of kindness are still obscured by selfishness and ego. These initial positive and compassionate feelings are easily forgotten if we cannot recognize and nurture them. These seeds symbolize the Buddha nature within us. Discussing these vague motivations for vegetarianism may not be necessary, as such feelings might lead to vegetarianism, but are not directly related to its significance in Buddhism. Case 3. Conscious and committed Buddhist vegetarians. Some Buddhists practice vegetarianism with clear awareness and commitment. For them, what is the significance of vegetarianism? This section will provide detailed examples for each case. Example 1. Conditional vegetarianism. Some people only practice vegetarianism under specific conditions. For instance, a parent might vow to be vegetarian for 3 months if their child passes an exam, praying earnestly to the Buddhas. If the child succeeds, they keep their vow. This form of vegetarianism is more of a transaction with the Buddhas than a genuine Buddhist practice. Buddhists must understand that a child's success depends primarily on their intelligence and efforts, closely linked to their karma, regardless of external factors. If the child fails, the parent might blame the Buddhas for not answering their sincere prayers. Alternatively, the parent might regret making such a high vow and, after a month of struggling with vegetarianism, may look forward to the end of the 3 months to indulge in their cravings. They might even ask the Buddhas to excuse them for breaking their vow early, thinking that their child would have passed the exam regardless. Such forms of vegetarianism are not Buddhist practices, but self-imposed hardships due to ignorance. The joy and relief felt after completing the vow are mere illusions created by the mind. These sensations, whether of suffering or joy, are ultimately meaningless from a Buddhist perspective. Example 2. Disconnected from compassion. Consider 2 individuals who practice vegetarianism sincerely on the 1st and 15th days of the lunar month. One sells fish and the other buys fish. The seller, busy slaughtering frogs, sells a fish to the buyer. Despite the visible suffering of the animals, neither shows any compassion. These scenes have become so familiar that they no longer perceive the pain inflicted on these creatures. Even if selling or buying is necessary for livelihood, at least they should silently acknowledge the suffering of these animals. Such detachment shows that their vegetarianism has no meaningful impact on their attitudes and behaviors, reflecting ignorance born of habit and insensitivity. Example 3. True Buddhist vegetarians. True Buddhist vegetarians, such as monks and some lay practitioners, see vegetarianism as natural. For them, vegetarianism simplifies their food choices and reduces attachment to taste. Mahayana scriptures often liken a bodhisattva's refusal to eat meat to a mother's inability to eat her child. Their consciousness is free from the thought of consuming meat. For them, vegetarianism serves to uphold precepts and cultivate compassion. In the Lankavatara Sutra, the Buddha said, "It is not correct to consider it reasonable and permissible to eat the flesh of an animal not killed by oneself or not killed specifically for oneself. I prohibit all meat eating with no exceptions." These teachings, as translated by Philip Kapleau in A Buddhist Case for Vegetarianism, emphasize strict adherence to a vegetarian diet. The 6th patriarch Huineng, after inheriting the Dharma from Hongren, lived among hunters and only ate vegetables cooked with their meat. The prohibition of killing is reiterated in many Buddhist scriptures, such as the Vinaya, Anguttara Nikaya, and Samyutta Nikaya. Precepts are an integral part of the Dharma. Without them, Buddhism would lose its essence and might not have survived. Vegetarianism holds a higher meaning than merely observing precepts. Buddhism teaches us to recognize the pervasive suffering in the cycle of samsara. Practicing vegetarianism reduces this suffering, promoting non-violence. True Buddhist vegetarians are truly courageous, non-cooperative, and outside the fray, avoiding the endless cycle of craving and killing. We must note that if a vegetarian clings to their practice, refusing to share meals with meat eaters, this attachment contradicts Buddhist teachings. Although most discussions on vegetarianism focus on maintaining precepts and compassion, it is essential to look inward and examine how vegetarianism affects our consciousness and actions. Vegetarianism is not merely about maintaining precepts or seeking physical purity or saving lives. Even lifelong vegetarians cannot save many sentient beings from ignorance and greed. If vegetarianism is seen only as such, it remains an attachment to ignorance. Vegetarianism should be a daily practice to cultivate compassion, improving our minds to be more peaceful and empathetic. Ultimately, compassion leads to wisdom, and wisdom leads to enlightenment. Therefore, true Buddhist vegetarianism is an active, noble, and non-violent practice. It nourishes compassion, providing the ground for wisdom to grow. A bodhisattva meditating in a cave does not aim to save a few animals, but to cultivate boundless compassion for all beings. Vegetarianism should actively transform the mind. Indifference or insensitivity renders it meaningless. From this point, let us explore further and elevate our consciousness beyond dualistic concepts of vegetarianism and non-vegetarianism, beyond the constraints of precepts and accumulated virtues, beyond literal scriptures. This topic is extensive and will be addressed in a subsequent section. For vegetarianism, environment, and life. Even if we open the door to vegetarianism inwardly to step straight into our consciousness, if we still distinguish between inside and outside, between our mind and the external environment, between our own life and that of other beings, it means we are still clinging to the concept of our own life. To nurture this life, we decide to eat or not eat the life of other beings, and this distinction is a way of holding on to the ego. So, what is the relationship and position of our body, mind, and life concerning the general life of all sentient beings in this samsaric world? Some Buddhist authors defend their stance on eating meat by arguing that vegetarians, when boiling vegetables, kill countless tiny beings in the plants and water. This observation is accurate because we cannot completely avoid all violence and mistreatment of sentient beings, whether intentional or accidental, whether advocating nonviolence or practicing asceticism. Over 2,500 years ago, when humans had no microscopes, the Buddha taught that a single drop of water contains innumerable living beings. When drinking a sip of water, when bathing, we inadvertently harm the lives of these beings. However, we should understand that the lives of these microorganisms are very primitive and lack the emotions, such as fear or love, that more evolved sentient beings possess. So what are sentient beings in life? The scriptures divide the samsaric world into three realms or worlds, known as the three worlds, Tridhatu: the world of desire, the world of form, and the formless world. The world of desire, Kamadhatu, includes 6 types of beings distributed across 6 levels of evolution: hell beings, hungry ghosts, Preta, animals, humans, demigods, asura, and gods, Deva. However, within the human level, hellish scenarios can occur, such as imprisonment, torture, disease, poverty, abuse, and slavery. Likewise, humans can exhibit qualities akin to hungry ghosts, greed and malice, animals, ignorance and stupidity, or higher beings like gods and saints. The common traits of sentient beings in the world of desire are the desires to eat, indulge in sensual pleasures, and fear death. These are the fundamental instincts that bind sentient beings to the endless cycle of rebirth and existence, originating from primordial ignorance. Vegetarianism is a method to help dissolve the instinct to eat and the blind attachment to one's own survival. The instincts to engage in sensual pleasures and fear death require other methods to be addressed, which are beyond the scope of vegetarianism. Sentient beings in the world of desire possess 19 faculties that scriptures describe as polluted, including A, 6 sensory faculties, 5 senses in the mind, as Buddhism considers the mind the 6th sense; B, the faculty of life; C, 2 sexual faculties, male and female; D, 5 faculties that produce karma, including the faculties of pleasure, sukhendriya; pain, dukhendriya; joy, somanasyendriya; mental suffering, dormanasyendriya; and indifference, upekshindriya; E, 5 faculties leading to moral conduct, including faith, sradendriya; effort, viryendriya; mindfulness, smrtindriya; concentration, samadindriya; and wisdom, prajnendriya. To make this classification more complete, we can look at the characteristics of the other 2 realms, the world of form and the formless world. The world of form is the realm of gods and saints, beings with form but fewer faculties than those in the world of desire, lacking sexual faculties, and 3 of the 5 faculties that produce karma. The formless world is the realm of great gods, beings who have transcended physical form, retaining only the mental faculty while lacking sensory faculties and sexual faculties. These beings possess fewer faculties compared to those in the world of form and the world of desire. In reality, in the world of desire, we can easily recognize various types of beings coexisting and interacting at different levels, from hellish conditions and hungry ghosts to animals, humans, and higher beings. The world of form and the formless world are more refined and subtle, beyond the dualistic and conventional understanding of science. Beings in these realms still interact with us in the samsaric world, but only a few with highly developed spirituality can perceive and interact with them. In scientific terms, the world of desire is divided into three realms: the mineral realm, the plant realm, and the animal realm. The mineral realm in general lacks life but undergoes constant changes and reactions based on physical conditions. For example, water freezes below 0 degrees Celsius and evaporates above 100 degrees Celsius. Salt dissolves in water but recrystallizes when the water evaporates. These changes, simple as they may seem, are part of the complex and subtle transformations in the material world, showing that the boundary between matter and energy is not distinct. Quantum physics and astronomy reveal these transformations, requiring advanced tools or mathematics to understand or predict phenomena that are not directly observable. The mineral realm includes part of the material makeup of human bodies and the bodies of all sentient beings in samsara. Therefore, all beings, life, consciousness, and actions, including karma, originate from conditioned formations. Besides the mineral realm, there are the plant and animal realms. Usually, we see multicellular organisms in these realms. Unicellular organisms like viruses and bacteria require scientific methods and tools such as microscopes to observe. These microorganisms are ubiquitous, living in harsh environments, on and inside our bodies, and playing both beneficial and harmful roles. They are the basic food for multicellular organisms and the source of diseases. Unicellular organisms in the plant and animal realms do not differ significantly, with the boundary between them being very thin. However, multicellular animals have more complex capabilities than plants. The scriptures state that sentient beings in the world of desire possess 19 faculties, whereas plants do not have all these faculties, or their potential is minimal. This distinction is why vegetarians only consume plants. However, plant life can also be complex. For example, the mimosa plant reacts to touch by folding its leaves. Recent scientific discoveries reveal that some plant roots secrete toxins to kill surrounding plants, protecting their living environment. Given this complexity of life, how should we define vegetarianism? If we rigidly adhere to what is considered vegetarian, we might face many contradictions. The boundary between plants and animals is not absolute, but the best criterion to define vegetarianism. Recognizing our position and interconnection with other sentient beings in the world of desire and the entire samsaric world is challenging. Scientifically, all forms of life are interconnected, supporting and destroying each other. In this context, defining vegetarianism is delicate. Should we transcend the constraints of vegetarianism to achieve a state of complete integration with life, forgetting our ego and merging our life with all beings? Understanding vegetarianism in this way means respecting and loving all forms of life as we do our own. In the existence of all beings, our presence is also there, albeit in a small, humble, and seemingly insignificant way. Ernst Haeckel, 1834–1919, a renowned German zoologist and embryologist, observed that the development of a human embryo recapitulates the evolutionary stages of animals, from a single-celled organism to a complex mammal. His statement, "Ontogenesis is a short recapitulation of phylogenesis," reflects the interconnectedness of an individual with the evolutionary process of the entire species and life in general. This observation aligns with the Buddhist concept of interdependence, encompassing past, present, and future life of all beings. In conclusion, understanding these insights leads to treating all beings with friendliness, love, and avoiding unnecessary violence. Letting go of the ego and harmoniously integrating with all forms of life, from flowers to grass, from humans to saints, respecting and loving all forms of life across past, present, and future, is the true conduct of a Buddhist. This broad and expansive approach transcends the simple definition of vegetarianism. 5. Conclusion. Adopting vegetarianism based on scientific understanding and discoveries to promote better health does not inherently align with Buddhist principles. Regardless of how healthy one might be, the body will inevitably face issues, as it cannot escape illness and death. Viewing vegetarianism as a transaction or exchange with the Buddhas is self-imposing, a debt or a form of self-torment, which is not only un-Buddhist, but also harmful to both body and mind. Practicing vegetarianism while being indifferent to the suffering of sentient beings is a futile act. True Buddhist vegetarianism should manifest compassion, creating a fertile ground for wisdom to grow. Transcending the mere concept of vegetarianism and non-vegetarianism to harmoniously integrate one's mind and body with all beings, regardless of their size, visibility, past, or future. Whether dull and pitiful, vicious like hungry ghosts, or gentle and noble like devas and saints in the realms of desire, form, and formlessness is even better. To contribute further to the conclusion, the author wishes to share a poem. These verses were written long ago and are included here to highlight two themes. First, the concept of interdependence, interaction, and mutual creation of all entities and events in the world around us. Second, the continuous fluctuation, creation, and destruction of all phenomena and life in particular. In this constant flux, we cannot see ourselves anywhere. The conclusion of the poem is the Buddha's smile, symbolizing enlightenment. The wooden statue on the pedestal, the Buddha statue, sits still. I hear echoes within each grain of wood. There's the chirping of birds in the forest, the rustling of leaves, and the whispering promises of worms. On the wood grain lines, I see green on the branches, the rosy hues of the clouds. In the cracks, there is the warm sun, the breath of life in the cells. In the contours of the face, there's the presence of the craftsman. In the gentle eyes, the hands of the sculptor. Soaked in each vein of the wood, the tree sap from the earth, the spring water from the river. In the fragrance, the statue sits quietly on the pedestal. In the smoky haze, I sit quietly on the mat. Suddenly, I hear the gnawing sound of termites in the wood or buds in the mat. In my body, countless microorganisms like the sands of the Ganges, they live, proliferate, and gnaw. Startled in panic, I look up through the thin smoke, gentle and benevolent. The statue smiles in the fragrance.